Hey, all my IFG friends, this is Steve. I want to say, if you like movies like I do, we've started a new podcast called Happy Hour Flicks. You can find it anywhere podcasts are found. It's all about nostalgic movies that we love, and we bring on special guests each episode, and we also have specialty cocktails made for each one, too. So it really is an hour of a good time talking about movies that we love, like Gremlins, Seven, Free Willy. We talk about The Last Starfighter also. I mean, we kind of run the gamut across all the decades and really have a great time. So wanted to invite you to come over and join us. That's Happy Hour Flicks, anywhere podcasts are found.
This is the
Independent
Filmmaker's Guide
from Framework Productions.
Framework
Productions.
This is the Independent Filmmaker's Guide podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Pierce. Now, filmmaking consists of many moving parts, all working together cohesively. One of the most visible of those parts is obviously the actor. Today, I'm taking a look at the process of the actor and discussing the perspective, lessons, and workflow of navigating many different sets. You will have seen my guest today on The Punisher, Broad City, Quantico, and much, much more, actor Todd Alan Crain. Todd, thanks very much for coming on and just shooting the shit with me.
Thank you so much for having me. This is fun. It's going to be fun.
So how did you come to be a not lawyer? What bad decisions did you make in your lifetime to end up being in front of the camera?
So many bad decisions were made a long time ago. I actually started in high school, like a lot of people do, and a friend of mine convinced me to audition for the musical, at the spring musical in my junior year of high school, and I was like, no thanks. And then I did it, and I was in it, and I thought, oh my God, this is kind of magical. And so
what musical
started? It was Guys and Dolls.
Of
course. The show starts with this fugue for tin horns, which is the first sung song in the show, and I was one of those three guys, and it was like the most exciting thing I'd ever experienced. And so from that, I went to school. I went to university, and I have a musical theater degree. That's what I went to school for. So I moved to New York City 13 days after I graduated, and all I wanted was to be in a big fat Broadway musical. That's it. That was my goal. And then I got here and realized how hard that was. That was real tough. And then it started this other journey of trying to figure out exactly how to get there, how tough it was, and how many other areas of this business there were to work in, especially as a young actor just moved to the city. And you're not 100% sure of what it is that you're going to end up doing and where this business is going to accept you or not. And eventually, it took a lot of years to get here, but I ended up on TV, and I found a home that I love. And I didn't know that I was going to love it as much as I do. And it's afforded me a lot of opportunities that I didn't have and wouldn't have had I taken the Broadway route. So the main difference, of course, is the fact that you're doing literally a different thing every single day that you're on set, as opposed to a Broadway show where you're doing literally the same thing 8 times a week. And that's a huge difference right there. And I love it. I love where I've landed.
So you kind of fell backwards into acting in television and film.
Correct. Yeah, this was not a goal. I'd never even considered it. We had one TV and film class in college, and I took it, and it was fun. And I thought, this will never happen. So I'm going to focus on what my major is, which is musical theater. And so I moved here with that in mind, and then the rug kind of got pulled out from under me, and I ended up hosting a lot of things. So that was my introduction to on camera. So I met this company in Connecticut they were a very small company, and they were doing kids educational videos, and they needed a host. And so I learned how to use a teleprompter and hosted my own educational kids videos for elementary grade school kids. And I did probably 27 of those videos, which was great. It was a really great experience, and working on camera and figuring out what works and what doesn't in terms of a host. And then I ended up hosting a lot of other things. I hosted the television game show Jeopardy, which is kind of an offshoot of everything else that I've done. I've hosted 196 full games of Jeopardy with the IBM computer Watson. So that was, it's been a kind of a crazy career, but I'm really lucky to have found any opportunity to work in this business, because every actor that you talk to will tell you the very first thing that it's kind of hard. If you're making the decision to get into it, you got to be prepared for the downtime.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
for the disappointment.
So I have a similar story. Like I got a degree in musical theater, and didn't honestly know. I came from the middle of nowhere, just didn't know what I wanted to do. And then once I figured it out, it was that I wanted to be a director. I was already halfway through a conservatory, so it was too late, to not like restart or finish. So I finished, moved to New York, did the same thing, did the auditioning thing, and ultimately moved to doing other stuff. So how do you approach? What is your approach differently? Because theater is really different. Like it's a long process of collaboration and kind of learning what the piece is and learning what the character is and learning your track across 3-4 weeks. Film is show up on set. You could be shooting within the hour and you could be done in 2 if you have under 5 lines. So what's your approach?
So I have to say that from my own personal experience, and if you ask that question to 50 different actors, you're going to get 50 different answers. But from my experience, having the theater background and taking the time over those 3 weeks to learn a character, to figure out exactly who that character is, that was a really great training ground for the downhill snowball effect of television. There's no time for you to spend 3 weeks getting to know a character, because you might land a job 2 days before it shoots. So, and one of those days has to be your costume fitting. So you don't have a lot of time to figure it all out. So all of the training that I had doing theater really assisted me in condensing down the process of figuring out who someone is, so that when I get to set, I'm ready to go. There's an immediate, I have a set of circumstances. I know where this guy came from. I know what his relationships are with the people who I'm interacting with on set, in the scene. I know why I say the things that I do. And that wouldn't have been possible for me had I not had the training as a stage actor, because it's so in depth. It's so time consuming. There's so many details that you have to go through as a stage actor to make your performance as believable and relatable to a giant 1,500 seat audience as possible. But now you don't have a 1,500 seat audience. You've got a glass round circle that you're playing everything to. So you've got to make that switch in your head. And luckily enough, I was able to make that switch fairly easily, but because I had so many years of theater background training.
Yeah, because also you may not even know if you're doing on these different shows. It might be a new series you've never seen before, unreleased, with a director you've never worked before. How do you determine the tone of performance and what you're going to bring?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So that exact scenario happened with Broad City, the first season of Broad City that I did. I played this character named Kevin, and I went in to audition. My friend Cody was the casting director, and I had auditioned, was going into audition for the final episode of the first season, which there's a maitre d' in that episode, and he has less than 5 lines. And so that's what I was going in for. And I didn't know what Broad City was. It wasn't on TV yet. It was literally shooting its first season. So I went in and I did the audition, and Cody was like, "That's awesome. Can I ask you to do me a favor?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And so he said, "We just got this episode in, and it's got this character named Kevin, and I think that maybe you could take a stab at it." And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And so he handed it to me, and it was a lot of material. And I was like, I need just a second. Can I go out and look at it? He was like, "Yeah, no, take your time." So I went out and I looked at it, and I was like, "Oh my God, this guy is extraordinary. It's really funny. And I know who this is." So I literally spent 5 minutes, however it took for the last actor to audition while I was in the waiting room. And so I went back in and I did it. And I did it one time, and they were like, "Oh my God, that's amazing. Thank you so much." And that was it. I got the job. And so then I found myself on this set, and I had made a series of choices in the waiting room of that audition for that part that I was literally just handed, that just happened to fit in with the director's idea and Abby and Alana's idea of who this character was when they wrote it. So that just happened to all come together at the same time. So you're taking a risk. It's a calculated risk. Do I understand how this character reacts, literally just being given the script? And if that's the case, you stand a much better chance of actually getting that part. If you have to work for it really hard and you have to dig and dig and dig because you're not going to get it in the initial take, then chances are you're not going to get that job. I love those challenges, though. That's one of the greatest things about this business, is that in those moments, you can be given a script literally in the room and say, "Can you do something with this?" And because of the background that I have, I have this tool chest and that I have all of these characteristics that I've collected over the years that I've played all of these different types of characters, that I can pull out characteristics. And it's like you see little kids going up into an attic and they open up this chest and there's like a robe and a hat and like a feather boa and like all of this stuff that they put on for playtime. You know, they're dressing up for playtime. That's exactly what my tool chest is like. I pull out those characteristics and I think, oh, this can be applied to this guy because he's saying this to this type of person. Great. That's fascinating to me. I love those challenges. So I think I teach a lot of workshops for young actors and actors my age and older actors. But it's one of the things that I try to convince people of is to build as much stuff in your tool chest as possible, because you never know when you're going to need it. So from that, I created on Broad City this character named Kevin. And then they asked me back for the final season of the show because he was such a nice hit for the first season. He was like, Alana said to me, this is kind of an Easter egg for the fans. So we thought we'd bring back Kevin for the last season. So yeah, you have to be smart about this business. It's not just, I'm going to go have playtime. There's a lot of work that goes into it. And again, my theater training really helped that.
So and do you find that how much of those tools that you're pulling out and that you're using, I mean, if you're just handed a role, you don't really have time to really build a character. It's like you're mostly being yourself with a couple of tweaks, right?
Correct. That is correct. Yeah, you're given an opportunity and you have to consciously make that decision. Am I going to take advantage of this opportunity and make this what I think it needs to be in order to be entertaining for an audience to watch? Or am I just going to be a victim to what is written on the page? I don't ever want to be a victim.
Have there ever been a scenario where you've gotten like a really good note for you, like from a director, like on a set, like maybe whenever you're first learning how to scale the camera?
Yeah, that happened actually during The Punisher when I was filming the last season of The Punisher that was on Netflix. The director we had was from he had done a lot of the episodes for Downton Abbey, British director, amazing guy. And he said to me that the circumstances of this character, he's been beaten up by John's character, the Punisher, Frank Castle. So he's bloody, and this is not his thing. He's a U.S. senator, so he's not used to like violence, especially being punched in the face by John Bernthal. But so I remember him saying to me that this scene that I was doing was really overly emotional for this character, and my director said, he said, I'm going to need you to pull that back because we're going to see that you're upset. You don't have to show us. And I was like, it's an important thing for an actor is having a director that knows how to convey a message that means something without 5,000 extra words going into it. I need you to just give me the nut of whatever it is that you're trying to tell me, because if you give me too much, I'm going to get confused. And then I'm going to go back to what I gave you the first time, because it's the only thing that I truly understand. So this director had an unbelievable succinctness to what he was saying and how he was saying it. If you give a 40-minute explanation for this one thing that you're trying to achieve in your own head of what you want to see in the final take, I can't process all of that information. And he was amazing at his succinctness. He knew exactly what to say and how to say it.
Man, you hit the nail on the head for the challenge, I think, of my career. Like, my constant fight is how can I say it in less words, like more effectively with less words. Again, I'll use the theater versus film comparison. I think in the theater, I feel like, or actually reality TV is oddly kind of the same way. We do like competition series once in a while, but it feels like you're almost like I'm almost the moderator of the group, like the teacher of the class. Like you put everybody in here and then it's just constantly them having fun while and that I feel like is the right relationship. You know what I mean? It's like where I'm here pushing the bus in a certain direction, but the bus, you know, I'm not part of it. Whereas when I'm shooting like a film or a scene with somebody, I feel like it is very important that a relationship exists between me and each actor, and be very specific, because especially because I remember recently we were shooting a scene and it was a very intense, very dramatic scene, and some of the actors in it were a little younger and less experienced, and some of them responded to, you know, old actor games that I remembered from school and like things I could do, like get into a Meisner repeat to get them to where they needed to be emotionally for the take, and others you just tell them what you want. Like you just tell them, you know, I want to see you cry and walk across the room and dismiss them. That's what they want. And so you guys, I mean, for me, I've found I got to have that individual relationship to really be good at what I'm doing.
Yes, and that I love the analogy of being the teacher in front of the classroom, because as teachers experience every single day that every single student has a different way of learning. And so you've got to be able to relate to every single kid in the way that they will accept information. That's exactly how we work, because as you said, on the same set, I can have somebody who is just, it's literally their first experience, and then somebody who's been doing 50 films, and I have to talk to them differently. I have to know that I got to figure it out immediately which class you fit in and what type of language I use.
Exactly. Like, I'm sure there are many times you've met someone, like you're meeting the director or the actor that you're doing the scene with right before filming. And so you're still trying to establish that relationship. How do you approach that?
That's an interesting question, because I did this film for HBO. It was called Paterno, which was the Joe Paterno story, the university coach that was Al Pacino was in that.
Al Pacino, yeah.
So Barry Levinson was our director for that film, and he's a big director. So I literally didn't meet him until I walked on set to meet my co-star. Like there was no introduction of any kind. They were shooting something prior to me getting there, and so we all just arrived at the same time. And he introduced himself, and I was like, "Yeah, I know who you are." And so there was no getting to know you process. There was no nothing. And so after every take, there would be like a series of notes that he would come up and just pass on to me. And that was the extent of our relationship. It's really hard to get to know somebody when you don't get a chance to actually talk to them and build that relationship. So I don't feel like I had a relationship with Barry Levinson. I had a working relationship. I was there to do my job, and luckily I knew how to do my job, and I took his notes and did exactly what he wanted. And I felt good about that. And so that's the trophy that you have to walk away with. Sometimes you don't get the opportunity to build a lifelong lasting relationship with someone, because you're literally just there for the day, and you're going to do your stuff, and you're going to get out, and you're going to go home, and you're going to audition for the next project. Which is not to say that was the experience that I had on Quantico when I did that show on ABC. So my director for that first episode of Quantico that I did was Jennifer Lynch, David Lynch's daughter. So Twin Peaks David Lynch. And so I didn't meet her until I got to the set that first day. And the very first thing that she said to me when we introduced ourselves to each other was, you were exactly what I had in mind when I was thinking about this character. And then I saw your audition. Immediately, we have a relationship because she did that. I didn't say anything. I literally said, "Hi, I'm Todd." And she said, "Hi, I'm Jen." And so then she offered that piece of information. And immediately we had this thing. She had information about me that she decided to share in that moment that created this dissolution of all of the walls. And there was an immediate trust. I knew exactly that my skill set was what she was anticipating and what she was hoping to get. So immediately all of the pressure is gone. That was amazing. And you don't get that with every director. Not every director is going to take a chance and build some type of relationship with an actor that they might only work with that one day. Luckily, I was brought back for 2 more episodes of that show because of the stuff that I did on the set that day. So I was written into 2 more episodes, which was a huge honor for me. And I have to thank Jennifer Lynch for doing that, because it was the very first television show I've ever been on where I've done more than 1 episode as the same character.
That's a very smart note that she gave. Like, whether, I mean, I'm sure it was absolutely genuine, but even like the thing that does to me, it seems, is immediately says, you're enough. Don't go acting, just be.
That's brilliant.
So let's talk about your kind of career over time. How did you go from booking like the 1 day on a show to getting multiple episodes? And was that a long trajectory, or was it just kind of happenstance?
It's a tough question. And again, you ask 50 actors, you're going to get 50 different answers for that. But yeah, it was a long, I think that genetically I was born looking like this. I am like the typical Midwestern guy that can kind of play a dick when he needs to. And that's awesome. That seems to be a valuable trait. So once that starts to happen and people start to recognize, especially your representation starts to recognize that you can play multiple kinds of roles and you have a certain look about you, that gets you in. And that makes them work harder, because then they see you as a moneymaker. And that's what this business is all about from the representation side. They want to make you money so that you make them money. And so once that relationship is established, that I can work in this business, but I need you to get me out there, then we both make money. That's how this works. So I got to a point after I was doing these very small parts on television shows where I started to get to know casting directors a little bit more. My representation definitely knew my work. So they were a little bit more able to push me in for those larger roles. And then it was up to me. I have to now step up to the next level. So if I'm ready to do that as an actor, then great, then we're all in this together. But if my representation is pushing for me to get into larger roles than I can actually handle, then that's not ever going to happen. Then they're going to get frustrated. You're going to get dropped as a client. And so there's a lot of pressure involved in that. So I've been lucky enough to learn something from every single job that I have ever had since I was in college. It's just something that I try to do.
So whenever you're working with an agent, that's, I think, an interesting thing. Do you ever have a piece or film or show that you want to work on that is you have to go up to bat for with them, and you have to say, hey, I really want to do this, this thing, and they don't want you to do it? And have you ever had that experience?
Never that they don't want me to do it. I have had several things where I've said, I know that this show is casting now, and I would really love to be on it because I loved last season of it. So if there's something that comes in that I'm right for, that you think you can push me for because it's a casting director that I don't know, or that I don't know if knows my work or not, then let's give this a shot. And so I've never had them say, I don't think that you're going to be right for anything on that show. That's never a thing. I think that you have to have such a good, speaking of relationships, you have to have the best relationship with your manager, because they are the person who is essentially going to push for you to get into auditions that you might not have otherwise been able to get into if you didn't have representation. The most important relationship, director, manager, the most important relationship that any actor has is with a casting director. That's the gatekeeper. That person is the person who makes the decision to bring you in for the audition or not. If you have a good relationship with a casting director, then you're good. You're good. You need to expand that as many times as you can. And luckily, I did an episode of House of Cards, and the casting director was Julie Schubert. And so from that one experience, it was such a really good part for me. And it was the very first time that I was ever allowed to get emotional in a scene. They ended up cutting that from the scene that I was doing with Meredith Vieira on the Meredith Vieira show for that segment. But she was there. Julie, the casting director, was in the audience, the Meredith Vieira audience, as we were shooting this segment for House of Cards. And it was amazing to be able to do what I thought this character needed to do on camera in this venue and have her be in the audience. So she got to know my work really well that day, which was amazing, as opposed to just coming into my audition. I meet you for 5 minutes, you do the piece, and then you leave, and then I send the tape off to the director. She actually got a chance to know who I was. So from that experience, she's the one who brought me in for The Punisher. And I ended up doing 4 episodes of that show as the same character. So, and it was a pivotal part for that show. And that relationship is the most important relationship that you will ever have in this business as an actor. Who is the most important person for you? Is it a relationship that you as a director have with a producer, or who do you think has the most weight in terms of what you need to achieve as a director on any set?
I think it, again, probably differs for every single person, and it might even differ per day. Because if you're trying to make a film or you're trying to do something, like you need a vast list of resources and people you can lean on. But I think singularly for me is, obviously I've been working with James, my producer, and he's a director in his own right for years. And, I think that relationship is probably the most important, because it you know what I mean? It's how you decide what to do when and what's appropriate and how you do it. And also just picks up, you're responsible for so much as a creative lead on something, which is kind of what I view a director as, you know what I mean? No matter what you're doing, I think it's your, sometimes on TV shows, the showrunner becomes really the person that is doing it, like, as a director, as in a feature film. So for me, I think that is, probably the relationship that I, need the most, is to keep me honest and make sure that my work is constantly pushing and it's the right time to do that. That's sometimes the hardest decision, is deciding when not to do something.
Right. Wow.
So but talk about that relationship with the casting director, because also, for instance, for a director, it's very important that you do develop relationships with the casting director, because a lot of independent feature films, how they get funded, how they get distributed, and ultimately become a film is by having an actor in there that can help make sales and help push the project forward. A name, especially as a first-time director, the way you get those most times is by knowing a casting director.
So you as a director having a personal relationship with a casting director that you trust.
Correct. Or pitching your idea to a casting director and convincing them to believe in it, because they're kind of the gatekeepers from our side, at least in the beginning, whenever you don't have a reputation as a narrative director, to getting with actors. And that's actually where I think a lot of actors get really interesting work too, is because you can get a really good role that normally you wouldn't get in this situation, or you wouldn't be up for in this situation, because they push you in in that scenario. So how did you develop this relationship with all these casting directors? Was it just over time?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's over time, and it's over your reputation. So a casting director is making a choice to bring you in. If they don't know you, they're taking a big chance. So they bring you in for an audition. Let's say you get the part on your very first audition for that casting director. Then you have a responsibility as an actor to go to that set, and you got to bring your A game every single damn day, because it's not just you and your reputation that you're protecting. You are also protecting the relationship that you have with the casting director, who is then going to put trust in you to bring you in for multiple projects that may span television and film and theater and commercials, whatever areas that they choose to work in. So that relationship is really dependent on how you develop your relationships while you are working on set, because they are the gatekeeper. They are the person who makes that decision. Example, to go back to House of Cards and to The Punisher. So I did this thing for House of Cards. Julie Schubert brought me in for The Punisher, and she sent me, that I did not know at the time, were dummy sides. So because it's a Marvel property, it was a Marvel property, now it's a Disney property, they were very secretive in what they would allow the actors to use for audition material. So they had some of their interns, the writers for The Punisher, had some of their interns actually write out a couple of scenes that would never appear in the show. They were never intended to appear in the show, but the actors don't know that. When you get the sides, they're dummy sides, so you work really hard on it. And you're thinking, this
might be a scene. I might be shooting this scene in 3 days. Yeah.
And what's the greatest thing was this was a giant 2-page monologue of a U.S. senator giving a press conference. And at the end of the press conference, it gets really emotional and touching for him. And so I went in and I did my thing. And I got the job. And then I get the phone call that the audition material that you used is not actually going to be in the show. And I said, I don't understand. I said, what did I just do? And they were like, well, they're dummy sides, that they're written specifically just for the audition to find a character that can do this. So I asked, when I got to the set, I asked the head writer of the show, because he was there, my very first day, I said, can I ask you how you know from writing a dummy side for an actor to go in and do for their audition that has nothing to do with the season or what is actually going to be required of them throughout the season, if you're giving them something that doesn't exist in the show? Where's the thought process going? He said, first and foremost, we don't have a choice. Marvel will not allow us to release any part of the script that's not being used on the set that day. So we have no choice but to write dummy sides. And we don't tell the actors that because we want them to put in as much effort as they possibly can.
We need to see them perform. We need to see if you can.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But then I said, answer this part of the second question. I said, the stuff that I have to do in this show is like, he gets punched in the face and he has this really emotional outpouring for several days. The first day on the set after I was punched, I had to cry for 5.5 hours. I didn't have to do that in my audition. So I said, how do you make that decision that I'm going to be capable of delivering the emotional stuff when I get on set if you've never seen me do that, especially in the audition for the show that you hired me for? And he was like, well, we take a chance. I was like, that is ballsy. That is ballsy.
I was
what if I
wondering-
had gotten there and just
Dude,
totally
you
shit the bed?
Yeah, I mean, I was wondering whenever you were saying that. I wondered, did they go through the scenes and try and find emotional waypoints and then try and write something similar? Like,
Yeah.
I was really wondering how they come up with that, because I've never heard of that before, and that's super interesting.
I didn't know that was a thing either. I had no idea. My audition for House of Cards, all of this is about House of Cards and The Punisher, but my House of Cards audition, when I got the audition, it was literally just one page, but it had been photocopied, and you could see that there were cut marks, like physical, like scissor cut marks and tape marks to create this one page scene. And I didn't understand exactly what was going on. So you have to do, as an actor, what you were given as this material. And they don't want you to improv and stuff like that. It's written for a reason. So I went in, and based on the information that I had for this House of Cards audition, I was a U.S. senator, or I was running for president. And I was on this show. It turned out to be the Meredith Vieira show. And I was talking about the fact that I had this, my male lover was a banker. And I got in and I did the thing as a US senator. And Julie stopped me after the first take and she said, "I'm so sorry." She said, you did exactly what you were given. And she said, "I have to apologize because I had to cut out, there's another person in the scene, but I had to cut all of their dialogue out because they wouldn't allow me to release the entire scene to you. So what you are seeing is bits and pieces of their dialogue thrown in with your dialogue. So you assumed that you were the senator to which this whole thing was revolving." And I was like, I'm really confused, but I ended up getting that job, which was crazy. And James Foley was my director for that, who directed the Glenn Ross.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Amazing director. Mm-hmm. Again, how in the hell are they making decisions? How do you as a director know this is my person? Have you but you've never put an actor in a situation where you're giving them sides that have nothing to do with the actual shoot itself.
No, I have no idea. I'm not sure. Like, I guess it's, it goes down to that thing. I mean, I have no idea how you would do that, but I mean, I guess it goes down to that thing when you are in casting. I do have sat on the other side of the table quite often, and they tell you when you're in acting school that when people walk in the room and you're like, yeah, and it sounds like it's so harsh. But you kind of do, like, within the first 15 seconds if there's somebody that it's going to work or not, or that you want to see more. And it's not ever really usually about something somebody's done wrong. It's about the things that they possess in themselves, like the energy that they bring to the room, the way they talk and all that. So I'm sure that, that has to be something in there. I'd love to learn more about that. So I'm going to try and track someone down to find out about that.
It is an interesting little dilemma.
I want to go back to, you were talking about The Punisher and crying for 5 hours and all of that. And that it was a really, really, really heightened emotional scene that you were doing, or some of those. Specifically, how was it? How do you stay primed to do that across a day? Because that's a long time to have to stay in that emotional state.
That is. This was the second time I'd had the opportunity to do something like this on camera. I did an episode, my very first episode, the show's been on for 19 years, Law and Order. I did my first episode of Law and Order and I played the bad guy, which was awesome. And he has this emotional breakdown at the end of the day. And it was awesome. It was the very first time I'd ever been able to do that wasn't comedy, that heightened drama. So then I get The Punisher and I have the experience of having done that kind of literal emotional breakdown at the end of Law and Order. So I had that bit of experience to pull with me, but this was different because I was a victim in this situation. I was not the pursuer. I was being pursued at that point, and he's scared and he's out of his element, and which is
one of the hardest things to do, being out of power and not pursuing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So it's terrifying when you convince yourself that this is really happening to you, because that's the only way, in my opinion, as an actor, that it's going to be believable for the audience. So that morning when I was getting makeup done in the makeup trailer, and I said, "Can I ask you a question real fast?" And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "Have you ever put makeup on somebody who is actively crying before?" And she said, "Oh, no, I haven't. But here's the thing. You need to do your job and I need to do mine. So whatever it takes for you to do your job, I will step up to the plate and I will do mine. And don't worry about me. And it was a very human moment between two two people who were going to be doing two very different things for that 5.5 hours. So I get to the set and I have to work myself up. And it's a series of, like, you're attaching yourself to the material, you're putting yourself in the world of this character and understanding the emotional weight that goes behind it. You're bringing back a little bit of your own personal, whatever made you the most sad kind of thing. And you're trying to maintain that throughout your day. And the very first time I came out, we were shooting in a mobile home. And so I came out of the mobile home just for a makeup touch up, and I'm sweaty and I'm gross and I've got blood everywhere and I'm crying. And she did it. She never said anything. She touched me up. She did a couple of things. And then she put her hands down in front of her and she looked up at my face and she said very quietly, "Are you okay?" And I'm so, like, I'm a mess while she's doing it. And I said, yeah. She goes, "Okay, good job." And she turned around and she walked away, and that was it. So from that moment on, we had this thing that she knew what she was in for. And it was really nice to have a female energy there. In some way, it felt very comforting to me, which then allowed me to go even a little bit further, because I knew that I had, this is weird to talk about, but I knew I had a safety net in my makeup woman, because she was so kind and she treated me so gently, knowing that I had to do something so incredibly difficult inside of the mobile home. And that made it easier for me. That made it was nice to know that there was some safe place that I could go, that I could escape just enough to feel like me again. She did her thing, and then I would go back in and do it all over again. And it was hard. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. The Punisher is by far the hardest job I've ever had. And I was there for 2.5 months. And it was a challenge. And not every day was, crying like 5.5 hours, but it was really emotionally the most taxing job I've ever had. And when that job was over, this is something that I would love to hear your take on this as well. My final shoot day was the worst emotional break for this character. He's given some information that he didn't know that literally breaks him. And it was 2 days after the shoot was all over. I was at home and I realized that I was so super depressed. And I realized that I was still carrying the shit from the set, that it was so heavy for me and so real and so desperate and sad that I had a really hard time shaking it. I mean, I didn't know that was a thing for actors. I didn't know that we could carry around the sadness and the depression and the pain from what it is that we do. Do you have as a director, do you have some type of hangover that happens after you're finished with a project? Like, because I imagine, I mean, your hours, right? Your hours as a director are so much longer than they are for us as actors. Like, you're in pre-production, and then you're doing the shoot, and then you've got to edit for 3 months. And like, that's a huge, long process. Do you experience something as a director that you have a hard time shaking at times?
I think yes. And it's not usually individual scenes. It's usually things that I think I could have done better, usually in prep or in imagination. The things that get me are what I feel like are my lack of imagination in tough situations. Like if I, have an idea tomorrow how I could have improved that scene yesterday, and that hangover lasts with me forever. Or pieces where, this segment should have been different, or we should have done this and that never leaves. Like that, that's one reason I don't like to jump into an edit right after we shoot. Obviously, if you're doing television, you have no option. You're going right in. But if you're shooting a film, that's, I know several directors that I've spoken to that like to just step away from it for a bit. And that's me too. I've made like edits like right away of like short films immediately afterwards, because I think I'm fresh on the coverage, and then I'll come back to it and I'll be super depressed and sad. And like we did the short film Bang Bang, which is a Western, and it's a Western clown comedy. It's ridiculous, but I'm really, really proud of it. It's really fun. It's basically
that's awesome.
Yeah. And, but I remember doing the first cut of it, and I just text my colleagues and be like, I'm sorry guys, I fucked this one up. Like I missed it. Like this, I didn't do it. We put all these resources in here. We're all here, and it's on me. It's nobody else's fault. And I was super, super sad for like a week.
Oh my
and then
God.
Yeah, I didn't come back to it for like 2 months, and then totally redid it. And I think it's one of the best things I've ever directed.
That is amazing.
So
what a huge success story that is.
Yeah. Yes, the answer is yes. Now for actors, I think it's really tough with television, because in theater, I would approach that from the beginning and take those scenes from more of a Boleslavsky background than a Stanislavski. Sure. So
Absolutely.
In other words, imagining, like learning once somebody has something that's actually traumatizing or hitting a true note, but from the wrong reason, the right moment for the wrong process reason.
Yes.
That in theater, it would take a different approach to it. I'd step back and say, let's imagine this character from this way. And let's imagine, so the Boleslavsky technique basically is, as I remember it, I'm going to bastardize it, but basically is, if you're a killer, it's the same as you killing a mosquito, like that kind of thing. Imagining other areas that are not damaging to you personally. You're not imagining self-trauma, or, you're not pushing these things from your past into your active stuff. Anyway, But for film, I mean, it happens all the time. It happens in every emotional scene. Farther, go more, dig deeper, give me more, one more time, a little bit more. And then, okay, now take 10 and we're going to come back and do it again for the coverage. And so I don't really have an answer for that for actors. I can see that being a big problem, because when you need to do it right now and the pressure's on, especially like a big show like The Punisher, all this money every minute is just flowing out and everyone's sitting here staring at you. That's also higher ability, right? You feel you must deliver that. So I'm not certain, and that's a good thing to take away from here that I want to think about a little bit more, because how can I be better as a process director to help actors in that moment, rather than just pushing and breaking the character and pushing into self? How can I be, that would be one of those that would be something that would hang over for me, for instance. Like if I'd done that to an actor and they told me 2 days later they were still having trouble shaking it, that would hang with me, because I'd be like, that's a problem of imagination on my part. It's like, because I pushed someone rather than enabling someone,
As an actor, this is my own personal take on what you just said. I wouldn't want you to change anything, because as I said earlier, every single person on a set, or every single person in any type of production, we're all working towards the same goal. I would never hold you responsible for getting a performance out of me that you think is worthy of the material that I'm trying to shoot. That's my bullshit to deal with offset. And if I'm going to share that with you, I am making the conscious choice to put some of that on you. That's not your problem. I need you to give me a performance that I hired you to give me. That you and I differ in that, because and that's coming from the actor standpoint. I want you to push me as far as and my director for Law and Order said to me, I want you to take this as far as you can take it. The very first thing that I thought as he said that, and he turned around and walked away, was, you're going to regret saying that, because now I'm going to go. Now you've given me permission to push this as far as I can take it. And my goal is to make this as uncomfortable to watch as humanly possible. That's my goal. That's your fault. That's on you. And I look at that stuff from Law and Order and I'm like, yeah, I'm proud of that. I'm really proud of that. So I carried some of that with me in my toolbox to The Punisher. And that was honestly, that's the one thing that I thought for 2.5 months, I have to make this as uncomfortable to watch as humanly possible, because I know that's the only way that I'm going to believe as an audience member that David Schultz, the character that I played on the show, is actually going through what he's going through. That's not on you as a director. I disagree with that completely. And I understand from an emotional standpoint, you're a human being, that, yeah, I feel bad that 2 days after the shoot, I made you feel like shit, but I got the performance I wanted out of you, and I'm really proud of that. Like that would be the first thought that would go through my mind. That's not your responsibility. We have responsibilities as actors to protect ourselves in whatever way we need to do that. Some people choose to do that by numbing their feelings, by drugs and alcohol or sex or shopping or whatever that is. That's their problem. That's the way they deal with it. I have very little sympathy for that because that's their method. I don't blame you, nor would I ever blame you for getting a performance out of me that I ultimately am going to go, holy shit, I've never done that before. And I want to thank you for that. That would be my reaction to you. Not, hey, by the way, 2 days after this shoot, I was on the verge of jumping off the top of my roof. That's not your responsibility. I disagree. I could not disagree more, because you have a lot of responsibilities. I understand what it's like to be in control of all of those people and to be making all of the decisions and all of that weight coming to land on your shoulders. I have one job. It's your job to make me do my job. Great. I understand that. You need to get out of me what you need to get out of me. As long as we understand what the ground rules are, I can't hold you responsible for that, for my emotional well-being. I'd have to say that actress may not be emotionally stable enough to be doing that kind of material. That's honestly my reaction to that. And I feel bad in a lot of ways for saying that, but
no, I don't think you should feel bad. I think that's just, that's just part of human nature, just part of the process too.
Absolutely.
So I think the thing that would bother me about it, and because I hear what you're saying and I respect what you're saying entirely, and I appreciate what you're saying, I think it's the difference between what I want to do is in super emotional and super tight and hard scenes like that, and especially things where you're pushing someone very emotionally. I want to walk right up to the brink of the edge of breaking and look over the side and see what's in the abyss. I don't want to push someone over the edge. So I think that is the difference, because I think, especially in those intense moments and these intense scenes, if you push and push and push and push and push and push, you obviously need to push, and you need to push far, but you also have to have a sense of where that line is, because you can come at it in a different way. You can take a break and come again and get the performance you need without breaking someone. And I think that is what I'm taking issue with. And I think if you have 2 days where it's hard to shake, that's a, you know what I mean? That might be one thing where I would be uncomfortable at that point. I'd be like, we should have prepped this more and spent more time endowing props, endowing smells, endowing. There are hundreds of ways, and every person's different to get that. And you know what I mean? And I think that's what I'm taking. I think I would take issue with,
I got it. Yeah, that makes sense.
So, Todd,
yeah,
where can people, what are you up to now? Where can people find you?
I'm actually doing a lot of workshops. I taught one yesterday for kids in Columbus, Ohio, of all places. I went to school at Audrey University, which is 20 minutes outside of Columbus. So this was a college friend of mine. She's running the kids department of this summer theater camp in Ohio. And she asked me if I would teach a workshop for 11 to 16-year-olds. There were 16 of them. So we did a 2-hour workshop. Then I'm doing another workshop next Thursday for a group up in Connecticut, all thanks to Zoom. And I've done 2 other workshops thanks to Zoom. So I do a lot of that. I work with as many actors as are interested in hearing my opinion on things and hearing my stories. And the only thing that I want in return is for them to feel like they have a little bit of a stronger grasp on this business, because when I first started out, it was really hard for me. I didn't have a mentor. There was no one from my class. There was no one from the class before mine in New York City. I was completely by myself, and I was terrified. I didn't know how to start as an actor. And that was a scarring, jarring, unbelievably educational period in my life. So at this point in my life, I would like to help as many actors as I can to take the mystery out of this, to answer the questions that you've never been able to answer before. So I hold these workshops. I don't charge for them, but it just means more to me that people feel a little bit better about themselves in this business than they did when they went in. Another thing, these paintings that if you're listening to the podcast, you can't see the paintings, but I paint. That started about 1.5 years ago. So I had the groundwork laid for all of the paintings. And then during this quarantine, I've been able to churn out a bunch of them. So that's how I occupy my time most of the time is I cook and I do the paintings and I do workshops. And I have conversations like this, not as in depth as this at times, but I love to talk about this stuff.
Yeah, that's great. What about do you have any films or places people should go check out your work?
That's an excellent question. There's a short film that, speaking of independent films, is the most intense experience I've ever had on any set besides The Punisher. And the film in its entirety, including the opening and closing credits, is less than 3 minutes. And it was one of the most beautiful experiences I've ever had because it was so intense, and it was literally just one moment that changed someone's life. And you just see that moment happen. And that's it. It's a very simple, quiet thing. It's a film that's it's on Vimeo, which is the only place you can find it. It's called First Night Out, and I play a transgender woman. And First Night Out is an indication that it is this woman's first night out anywhere, dressed as how she feels on the inside. And so she's in a diner, and the waitress and she have this moment, and it is the most beautiful, quiet, lovely thing I've ever done. So different from The Punisher, but
it sounds lovely.
Yeah.
I really got to check it out. That sounds awesome.
The whole thing is less than 3 minutes, and it's this trophy moment for this person who is going through some stuff, and it's a beautiful thing. It's one of my proudest achievements because I put a lot of pressure on myself to get it right. I didn't want to mess it up. And that's where they can find it. Go to Vimeo and type in First Night Out, and that will be the film. It's a film done by Will Mayo, is the name of the director, and he actually won. He entered it in all of these gay and lesbian festivals across the country and across the world, and ended up winning this $50,000 grand prize for this film that is less than 3 minutes long. It's like 2:45 or something like that.
Wow!
So 50 grand for less than 3 minutes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What about your Instagram? Where can people follow you on social?
It's at Todd Alan Crain, ALANCRAIN. That's and you can follow my paintings at Todd Alan Crain Art Studio. Yeah, that's me. That's my journey.
Well, thanks for taking the time to chat with me, Todd. This has been Absolutely. A lot of fun.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it very much.
Filmmaking is a collaborative experience, and so is this podcast. Follow us on Instagram at framework_productions for upcoming episode announcements, and leave your questions in the comments for our future guests. Please take a second to subscribe so you know about future episodes, and leave a review. It really does help us. For more information about today's guest, visit independentfilmmakersguide.com. IFG is a community, and we want to help you in your filmmaking process.
Hi, I'm Audrey McHale, an editor from New York City, and I'm reading the credits. IFG is created by Framework Productions. This episode was directed by James Allerdyce, produced and edited by Matt Mundy and Audrey Ray McHale, and hosted by Stephen Pierce. The music is by Glassboy. Find his music on freemusicarchive.org. See and listen to all the episodes plus bonus content at independentfilmmakersguide.com. Thanks for listening.
Hey friends, we just wanted to take a quick moment to talk about two personal things. First, we wanted to thank you, our listening community, and our wonderful guests, learning so much together along the way and continuing to learn, sharing our stories, making a lot of new friends, and collaborating, which is exactly what this is all about. Which also brings me to my second point. In great part to many of these new relationships, we wanted to let you know that we've taken a lot of this advice ourselves and made our own narrative feature film, Herd, H-E-R-D, Herd, which is premiering this October on Friday the 13th in select theaters as well as on VOD. Personally, I think it's the perfect kind of scary movie to watch during our favorite scary season. So we'd love for you to celebrate with us and watch Herd. You can pre-order it on Apple TV, and of course, do the communal thing, see it in theaters. Of course, for all of this, please see our show notes, but basically, we're going to keep it all updated at herd.film. That's HERD.FILM, herd.film as well. Thank you again, and be sure to give us a rating and a review over on Apple Podcasts so we can continue to build this community and collaborate. IFG, how movies get made.